Me and Joe go bad, we go bad on each other. And like when I hear why he's upset with me, I'm like, oh, I can understand why he felt that way. His last situation with Spotify.
Mm,
And I was on the radio and I said, I think Joe Budden understands, Joe Budden knows his worth. He just doesn't know how to negotiate it or something like that. I think
mm.
I said, and I was just like, if every time you're at a corporation and things don't go the way you want them to, kind of got to blame you and your team. You can't compare yourself to the Joe Rogans and the Bill Simmons and all of those guys because Joe Rogan is an anomaly. Number one, like no, don't nobody do numbers like Rogan. Period. Black, white, it don't matter. And the guys like Bill Simmons, they have networks,
Mm.
so they get compensated a little bit different.
I'm glad Charlamagne and Angie Martinez actually covered this, because Joe spoke on Charlamagne recently on the pod, and I was curious if Charlamagne even heard it. Mature minds always win in hindsight, 2020 vibes, all the cliches, but it went down in this little segment. He started breaking down why him and Joe throw so much shade at each other when they go at it, and the key takeaway? There's no real animosity. They're rivals, plain and simple. It's a competitive energy, and if people really understood that, this so-called beef would be way more entertaining instead of feeling like personal shots. But here's the kicker. They already crossed the line when Joe brought up those allegations about Charlamagne. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Now that's behind him, and Charlamagne is secure in his bag. He can speak freely about how he was acting and treating Joe back then. So when he mentioned Joe giving him props for signing that 5-year, $200 million deal, instead of Charlamagne questioning Joe's negotiating with Spotify, it hit different. Charlamagne said Joe tried to throw shade about them not calling each other, but he shot that down. What do I need to call you for? I'm negotiating, making sure these MFers don't take all my rights. He's handling his own fight and championing independent people like himself. Meanwhile, Joe's fight is being the top dog at a huge conglomerate, so naturally they're seeing each other differently. At the end of the day, though, they're still fighting the same fight. If Charlamagne builds strong relationships with iHeart, Netflix, and other connections, he could open doors for independent creators like Joe, and vice versa. If Joe keeps developing his networks, he could have helped Charlamagne land deals with iHeart, Patreon, or whoever. Joe has equity in Patreon, so paying attention to how Charlamagne moves in higher spaces is smart, recruiting talent and building leverage. Not just how he talks to Netflix or iHeart, but how he handles Black Effect Network and the big names under him. Because if you can't get those high-profile names directly, bringing them to Patreon still boosts your equity. Charlamagne openly admits he handled things wrong, but instead of fully owning it, he frames it as, this is how we do each other. If only these two could get on the same page. If only they realized they're two of the biggest faces, the biggest names, and the most powerful voices in urban podcast and broadcast media. Then we could push this to levels we haven't even imagined yet. Could you picture Charlamagne and Joe still connected? Charlamagne pulling in $200 million over 5 years, and Joe banking $20 million plus annually on his own? Now imagine them teaming up. What kind of deal could they broker with Netflix, Paramount, Peacock, or anyone else? Right now, we're locked on to Netflix and YouTube because those are the two biggest platforms where we can push our content. But here's why it matters for them to get past this, and eventually they will. They'll make amends, become friends again, and be able to do business together. This is huge for all of us, for our community, for the urbans, the people watching. Think about it. Look at past failures and contracts. When Joe Rogan went to Spotify and nobody followed, he still renegotiated a deal that gave him $245 million and the freedom to go back on YouTube. If something like that happened to one of us, to Charlamagne or Joe, we'd call it a failure and talk about it endlessly. Meanwhile, these two are taking in information, building capital, moving to new platforms, expanding their ventures, and never fully signing away their rights. They're stacking knowledge, money, and influence, hopping to the next platform, and never fully locking down to anyone. And we haven't viewed any of this as a failure. When The Ringer moved to Spotify and nobody followed, we didn't cry failure or accuse them of selling out. We celebrated the deal, stayed patient, waited out the 3-year period, and then watched them sign the next move. The same thing is happening with Joe and Charlamagne. Joe skipped the big Spotify contract, went independent, and still rose higher than ever. I was just saying the other day, Charlamagne's 5-year deal is ending, and we haven't heard a peep about a new contract. And yet, he renewed with ease, proving the game is still his to play. But because they're separated right now, the system keeps pitting them against each other. Instead of that, I'd bet money that Bill Simmons, Colin Cowherd, and Joe Rogan have all talked to each other at least once. How much y'all want to bet? You know the convo. Oh, I saw what you pulled off. I've got something similar set up, and I'm thinking about selling. So how'd you even get in touch with those people? Even if it's basic stuff like that, I guarantee they collaborated behind the scenes to build those deals. And I'd bet all 3 of them crossed paths with Howard Stern at some point. They exchanged information. They're never framed as enemies. Meanwhile, we are constantly positioned against each other. And all of this traces back to a miscommunication. Joe wouldn't have said half that foul stuff about Charlamagne if Charlamagne hadn't gone on a massive syndicated platform and said Joe Budden doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Because at the end of the day, your voice doesn't only reach black audiences. Yeah, we show up loud and supportive, but there are white decision makers listening too. They're thinking, oh, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's a hothead. Maybe every situation he touches turns sour. Now suddenly it's, I don't want to work with Joe. That's serious. And on the flip side, Joe bringing up those rape allegations did Charlamagne 0 favors, none. Thank God Charlamagne already had relationships, communication lines, and a network with iHeart, because that could have gone left fast. But like Joe said in that major rant I always replay in my head, they walked your ass right out those doors. If your voice is as powerful as we all know it is, saying someone can't negotiate does the same damage those allegations could have done to you. And we're doing that to each other. Now, who am I to say a $200 million contract isn't massive? But let's be real. Maybe that should have been 4 or 5, and this re-up could have been the 3rd one, because y'all have controlled the culture and the mic for over a decade now. Well over a decade. Almost 2 decades, honestly. But I'll move on. I was genuinely glad to hear Charlamagne speak. Lately, in most of his interviews, he's been leaning into maturity and mental health. He's actually explaining his thought process. He's saying it's okay to mess up. It's okay to have rivalries. But I really wish these two would reconnect. They're stronger together than divided. And let's not forget, they were known for those legendary year-end wrap-ups. What are the odds? It's the 23rd. It would be fire if they linked up and did something like that again. Let's turn the whole damn community up. Everybody's getting money over here. I see y'all. Y'all motivate me more than you probably realize. But anyway, let me know what y'all think in the comments. Is this a real rivalry? Is it something they can move past? Or are we stuck watching them clash forever? Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. If you have, you already know how we rockin'. Absolutely. And go check out the Patreon if you haven't. Every video drops free on day 1, then moves behind whatever paywall it lives on. I don't think I've said this on YouTube, but there's a new tier on Patreon. It's called the Elevated Platinum tier, and y'all have been turning that up. I'm not even pushing it heavy because I feel like I need to add more value to justify it alongside the $4 and $7 tiers. And as you've noticed, I don't repost YouTube videos on Patreon. So if you're supporting me there, A, I truly appreciate you, and B, know it's exclusive content. Whatever happens over there stays over there. We're building something special. I appreciate everyone who takes the time to move from here to there. But anyway, I'll catch y'all later. Peace.